Yo, you alright?
Nah, Cole, bro. Not gonna lie, I'm a bit itchy.
What you mean?
Bro, I've been using that Bic razor, man. I think I've got an ingrowing hair from it.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
What should I do?
This is for you and the fans' sake. You need to go cop up a manscape. Comfy to toss like a pancake. Cause now I don't look like a damn ape. I used to be hearing my family a Greek, but now I am trimmed and my bits are on fleek. Now I get nookie when under the sheets, and the back of my balls don't chafe on my cheeks. I recklessly trim in the dark, the ceramic blades are not sharp. I dangerously shaving the night with the help of my LED lights. I feel like a 1 in a million, wetting up girls like amphibians. I am not into Brazilians, thank you manscape, you are brilliant. And that's it, bruv, trust me.
Yeah.
Like, life-changing. I used to always say I'm a shower, not a grower, but now thanks to the mower, my ting hangs lower.
Yeah, Cole, what about the ball sweat, man?
What you mean?
What about the sweat, bro?
Sweaty sacks are not deserved, so I'm getting them slapped with crop preserve. And once you're down there checking for bumps, make sure you're checking for lumps. Pebble dash when I trim my mustache, mow the lawn, then I'm gone in a flash. Used to shave, then I show in a rash, but my Bic's gone straight in the trash.
Nice one, Cole. You've really put me on there, bro.
Not a problem, bro, but like I said, for you and the fans' sake, if you want to check out your manscape, then hit the discount code, all capital letters, Stay Central. That's all bold writing, yeah? Like my balls, Stay Central. You need to cop up a manscape.
The Central Club.
What's going on, people? Welcome to the Central Club. This episode is brought to you by Reinspire Printing and Mr. Crane Locks. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the club and hit the bell to be notified for future content. If you judge a book by its cover, you might miss out on an amazing story. This is a perfect example. We're very lucky to have this man speak with us today, just like he's very lucky to be alive. Some people's worst nightmare is drowning. Others could be bumping into their ex-partners. Mine is being banged up abroad. This sadly became a reality in the worst of ways for this man. Gloucester-born uni student turned international cocaine trafficker, spent years smuggling drugs into the UK from South America. Although successful for a space of time, he was eventually caught and sentenced to prison in Ecuador, where he spent almost a decade living in undescribable conditions and witnessing horrific murders on a daily basis, which ended up giving him complex PTSD. This man has some incredible testimonies already shared on channels like Vice, a 4-part special with Sean Atwood, and Insider. But with the tied connection with the home city of the Central Club, we just had to get him on. Not just about his time as a drug trafficker or his time in South America, but how it all started for him. His story is like a movie, and we're very blessed to have him here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you Pieter Tritton, or as some people know, as Posh Pete.
Thanks, Colin, and thanks for inviting me on.
Welcome on.
How you doing?
Thank you for being here.
No problem.
You're back in Cardiff, where it all started, basically.
Yeah, to some extent.
Did you ever think you'd touch Welsh soil again?
I didn't expect to be back in Cardiff, to be honest. I still maintain contacts with friends in Wales, down in Newport, Bridgend, Port Talbot. But it's been a while since I've been to Cardiff.
And that's the powers of social media, like, you know, being able
true.
to reconnect with these people who, some of them probably thought you was dead, probably, you know?
Yeah, there's been a few occasions when when people thought I was dead. Yeah, when I disappeared off social media.
Yeah. Has the city changed a lot for you coming down
I
today?
didn't even recognise it coming in on the train. All the new student accommodation has gone up.
Yeah.
It's on the train tracks and all that. That's all new.
Yeah, well, you've got Cardiff Uni, you've got the Uni South Wales, which got places here as well now.
Right, okay.
So it's built a lot in the last 10 to 15 years as well, like, you know.
So. I mean, the last time I was in Cardiff properly was probably 25 years ago.
Wow.
Something like that.
So, yeah, like the 90s really, innit? You know?
Yeah, end of the 90s. Well,
Wow.
Yeah, it would have been.
Raving days, they were.
Yeah, that's where it all started, the raving days.
Can you tell us a bit how it all started here? Why did you come to Cardiff in the first place?
Yeah, so I got a place at Cardiff Uni studying archaeology, having gained 4 A-levels. Moved down to Cardiff, into the student residence at Talibon.
Yeah, still there.
Are they still there? And it was there that other students first started asking if they knew where I could source any drugs. And one particular guy asked me to get some cocaine for him, which I'd never really dealt before. And I contacted my dealers from my hometown through my stepbrothers. And that's where it all began, really. Started bringing down half an ounce. Then it was an ounce. Then it was 4.5 ounces. Then it was a 9 ounces. And before I knew it, I was bringing like a kilo down, once a week, maybe more. And very quickly this escalated and, dealing hundreds of kilos of hash. Obviously my studies fell by the wayside. And in the second year, I dropped out of uni because it all became a bit too much, all the trafficking and whatnot.
So you decided to choose the trafficking rather than the studies, and basically.
Yeah, unfortunately, which is a decision that I regret to this day, really.
What was you studying?
Archaeology.
Wow.
Yeah. Still love it. Still love the subject.
Did you have dreams of being an archaeologist then? First?
I always thought of being Indiana Jones, as a kid,
Yeah.
You get those, you watch the films and treasure hunting and all that sort of stuff. So that was kind of what inspired me.
Yeah. So traveling the world was kind of something you wanted to do.
Exactly.
Anyway.
I wanted, which was one reason I wanted to go to South America to see Machu Picchu in Peru, which I still haven't seen actually.
Wow.
But that was one reason for wanting to go there. But cocaine was the other.
What? So you said you weren't usually dealing cocaine. So was you doing other drugs before that then?
Yeah, growing up, I grew up in a small village called Avening, which apparently you know.
Yeah. Shoplifting days.
Avening in Gloucestershire.
Lovely town.
Village,
sorry, yeah, it's the same.
near a town. So started off, my dad used to smoke weed basically, so I sort of grew up with that around me. And that was the first drug I ever tried about the age of 12. And because of the illegal rave scene at the time, just started tagging along with... sorry, hold on. Just started tagging along with my two stepbrothers, who were both older than me, and realised that it was an easy way to make extra money and to fund the partying was to, start selling drugs. Mainly at the weekend and to, just people that I knew at the time, obviously fellow students. That went on for quite a few years until I was about 17 and I'd gone to sixth form college in Cirencester, probably another town you know.
Yeah.
And I got arrested one morning as I was about to leave for college, and there was a knock at the door and two CID police officers were there, and I was arrested with like two ounces of hash cut up into deals, and ended up getting sentenced to, I think, 12 months probation at the time. So that was like my first sort of run-in with the police.
Sorry, how old? Sixth form, using sixth form?
Yeah, so like 17.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, they let me sit my exams, which is, got 4 A levels, which is why I managed to gain a place at Cardiff.
Yeah.
Having been caught, it sort of shook me up, and I decided to stop dealing completely at that time because I didn't want to jeopardise going to uni, and I sort of saw the effect it had on my family. But like I said, as I arrived at Cardiff Uni, hold on, sorry,
It's okay.
So as I arrived at Cardiff Uni, I realised that there was a market for drugs because a lot of the students didn't know where to source.
Yeah.
And trying to survive on a student loan was just not really happening. I expect a lot of students could relate to that. But
Was it easy getting drugs in Cardiff? Like, how easy was it to source them in Cardiff?
I wasn't sourcing.
He was
them in
going back
Cardiff.
to Gloucester. wasn't he?
Yeah, so instead of sourcing the drugs in Cardiff, I was going back to my hometown of Stroud and buying drugs through dealers that I knew there, and then bring them back down to Cardiff to supply to students.
So did you find that the work up there was stronger? I know you said, was it probably because
Not particularly.
you couldn't get it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's where my sources were at the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. One thing which strikes me as well, like people called you Posh Pete.
Yeah.
You're very well spoken. Were your family posh, or
No, not
because
at all.
your dad's smoking weed and stuff?
Yeah, no,
and,
no. My dad was a builder. My mum was like the homemaker. My parents got divorced when I was 10. Hence the fact I had 2 stepbrothers from like the age of 10 onwards. So yeah, there wasn't much money at home at all, and my family aren't posh whatsoever.
Yeah, it's that judging again, though, isn't it? Like that.
That nickname was actually given to me by a friend in Port Talbot called Shorty. So big up to Shorty.
Shout out Shorty from Port Talbot,
who used to call me his posh little English buddy.
Anyone's posh if you're from Port Talbot.
Yeah, you're sort of quite articulate, and obviously you've had your A levels, gone to uni.
I mean, my dad has got the typical sort of Gloucestershirean accent. I wouldn't say yokel local, but yeah, he doesn't talk like me. My mum was Scottish, so I think the hybrid between the 2 accents has resulted in mine.
Yeah. What was the moment then where you actually branched out from uni to then distributing in Cardiff and South Wales?
Yeah, so having started out supplying students, I quickly ended up meeting the local dealers in Cardiff, and then in turn they introduced me to their dealers because I started supplying the local dealers first of all, and because I was bringing I ended up bringing the drugs down from London. I've skipped a stage, but having gone from sourcing it in my hometown, the amounts that I was asking for just became too big for the local dealer. So he then introduced me to a guy from Oxford who was very well connected up in London, much older guy than me. So I then go up and meet his suppliers up in London, who were major crime families up in London.
Yeah.
And start bringing the coke and hash directly from London. So the prices were very, very competitive. Obviously, I beat the local dealers in Cardiff.
Did you ever get any run-ins with
people?
This guy. Who is this guy?
Yeah, there were. I mean, there was. I was going to mention earlier. There was one particular guy down in I think it was Splot area, Trafficker, who he was quite a player at the time. I can't say his name, but I say his first name was Philip. But
I know a few Phillips from.
I'm sure you do.
And they were players.
So it was me. Well, it was him and me were sort of like the main 2 at the time, and there was quite a bit of competition.
Okay.
But like I said, quite a few of the local dealers in Cardiff then introduced me to dealers from up in the valleys, people from Port Talbot, Bridgend, and further afield. So I'm then supplying, the much bigger dealers in turn.
Yeah, especially going more west. It's more to exploit out there, isn't it? There's more demand. These small, depressing towns, you could say, where people just want to fucking get high all the time.
Yeah.
I bet you made a killing.
How much money were you making at the time?
At the peak of it, I've estimated it was between, probably around 30,000 a month.
Shut up.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, some days, I'd make 10 grand in a day.
Wow.
Like in a couple of hours.
And not work then for like a couple of weeks, would you say? Or would you always?
No, I mean, because of the amount of demand, because I was supplying Cardiff, I was supplying people in my hometown. Then having dropped out of uni, I moved to Bristol, so I started supplying people in Bristol as well. Then made the active choice to recruit people in Scotland. So I then started supplying people in Scotland. So you can imagine the amounts and volume and the demand. Having to keep up with it was constant. I remember having at times 3 or 4 different phones constantly ringing.
What were you doing? You're saying you're getting 30 grand a week. What were you doing with that? A month, sorry. What were you doing with that cash? Because obviously that's.
I mean, some of it I was investing. A lot of it I was spending. Being young,
just like time. Cars, women, stuff like that.
I mean, I ended up renting a wing of a manor house in my hometown for like £1,500 a month cash, and I'd pay like 6 months in advance. Had like 5 cars on the drive, staying in really expensive hotels every week, like 2-3 nights a week, spending like 3 or 4 grand a week on hotels some weeks. At times doing quite a lot of cocaine. And then, of course, trouble comes along quite a lot of the drugs were being given to me on credit, sometimes £250,000 worth at a time, sometimes more. And I would then start giving out credit in turn, and that's when the trouble started.
People start knocking you.
Yeah,
and
you
stuff
start laying it,
yeah.
You know, and me not being a very big person, you know, I'm not exactly, you know, heavy.
Was you a one-man army then, or did you have people with you? Or
I was pretty much a sole trader, as I like to say.
Yeah.
I did sort of team up with people occasionally and sort of have a couple of people around me. We'd sort of work for a bit, and then, you know,
you move on.
Yeah, you move on and do, you know. But generally, yeah, I was sort of, you know, it was me on my own. So yeah, like I said, trouble started. I ended up in debt. So sort of juggling things, chasing my tail, and that became quite stressful.
Was it purely coke, or like you could say party drug? You know,
At the time?
type. Did you never dealt with heroin or any of that?
No. Later on, when I got arrested for the first time properly arrested in May of 2000, I did get arrested with some heroin at the time, but I wasn't dealing it. Someone had robbed somebody in Bristol, given me the heroin to move. I didn't really know anyone to move it to, and I ended up getting busted with it in amongst everything else that I got caught with. But yeah, that was never my thing. It was always, like I say, the party drugs, the coke, pills, a lot of amphetamine, a lot of weed, well, hash.
How did you get busted the first time?
That was, yeah, like I said, that was in May of 2000. And basically, I walked into a surveillance operation on somebody that I was supplying up in the Cotswolds. I've turned up there, given him 3 ounces of coke, and I've left the place. The police have raided it, unbeknown to me, because obviously I've driven off. They've raided it. He's managed to get the coke down the toilet, or most of it. They've then come chasing up the road after me, stopped me in a uniformed car, and I thought it was just a routine stop. I'm in a big red transit van, so you couldn't really miss me. And they knew there were drugs in the van because they went straight for the briefcase that I had the drugs in. They found on me 2 ounces of coke, I think 1,000 pills, and possibly some weed, and a sawn-off shotgun in the back of the van, broken down into component parts. And later on, they then found another 5,000 pills at an address, and a load of weed, and a load of other stuff as well. But it took them a little while to find that because I wouldn't give them the address, obviously.
How long did you get for that? People get weighed in for stuff like that.
Yeah, so it was the first offence. I ended up getting 5 years for it.
Yeah. What, 5 to half of that, or?
Yeah, to do half. But
it's a bit of a touch, really.
Yeah, one of the reasons I got 5 though was because I when I got arrested, they had me in basically Cat A conditions at Gloucester Prison. I was on the book.
It's a hotel now, I heard. Gloucester
Is it?
jail.
Is it?
I heard it's a hotel
Really?
now.
I think they were planning to do that.
I heard it was a wicked jail as well, Gloucester.
It wasn't when I was there, trust me, because they had me on the book. I mean, I wasn't allowed to associate with anyone. I wasn't allowed phone cards in my
It was
possession.
on the book, was you?
Yeah.
John Acty we had on, he was talking about that. Because I don't know about that. I've never seen that
Basically,
now.
I was the only potential Category A prisoner in Gloucester at the time. I spent nearly 2 years on remand, which was unheard of at the time. They said that I was the longest remand prisoner they'd had in 15 years. And that was one of the reasons that the judge in his summing up when I got sentenced, he said, because I'd gone guilty after 9 months because I was banged to rights. And the judge in his summing up said that the fact I'd been held nearly 2 years on remand and not sentenced was a fucking disgrace. So that was one reason I got 5.
Whilst you was doing, in the heights of selling cocaine, especially in Britain, did you ever sit back to look back and realise like how deep you was in this?
I don't know. At the time, before I did the thing in Ecuador, I suppose I didn't really. I mean, looking back now, I realise that I was, I was quite a big player, and I did, being young at the time, I didn't even realise that I was actually that far involved and that heavily involved, and certainly the people that I was dealing with, I mean, were people bringing in tons of coke at the time.
Yeah.
Really big people.
There was before we would go on to the Ecuador prison stories. You said out there that your first sentence in Britain was kind of tied into why you went. So could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so having got sentenced to 2.5, I wish. Having got sentenced to 5 years in prison, I got transferred from Gloucester down to Parkhurst, which was top security prison at the time. And I basically, having gone through the Category A fucking process, it pretty much broke me. And I'd had enough of drug dealing completely then. I saw the devastating effect it had on my family and friends. And I was like, I just want to leave that behind. I want to get out, try and do something legally. And whilst I was in prison, I trained as a painter and decorator. And my father being a builder, when I got out, I set up a painting and decorating business. And he was passing like the painting jobs on to me.
You should have called it PP. Posh Piece Painting the Day.
I did. It was called Pieter the Painter, actually.
Sorry, I had to get it in.
Yeah. But whilst I was in Parkhurst, I think I was reading a Sunday newspaper, and there was an article in there about these guys that had brought some coke in, impregnated into, like the plastic patio garden furniture you get, like the white
Tarpaulin type of thing, is it?
No, like plastic furniture, like garden furniture.
Yeah. Really?
The actual furniture that you know what I mean.
Well, like a deck chair.
Like deck chairs.
You kick the legs on.
Yeah, the plastic ones. So it was impregnated into the plastic, and someone must have informed upon them, and the police seized the container, found the drugs in the plastic. But reading this article, I realised that this was like the future of drug trafficking, because 9/11 had just happened. Whilst I was in prison in when was that? Was it 2000?
9/11. Everyone knows where they was that time, don't they? 9/11.
Was that 2001?
Yeah.
So that having happened, like all the security at the airports and ports had gone through the roof, and I'd read that they were stopping loads of drug mules. Because of the heightened security. So I realised that the days of bringing cocaine into the country in powder form, particularly through airports and stuff like that, was finished. And having read about these guys bringing it in impregnated, I was just like, wow, that's fucking genius. So I said to my 2 co-defendants who were in prison with me at the time, I said, look, if and when we get out, if we decide to do something again, then the only thing that I really want to do is bring cocaine into Britain or into Europe, because it's small volume and high in value, rather than bringing in like hashish, which is like to bring in, you'd have to bring in like 10 tons to make the same amount of money as you would bringing in 10 keys of coke, which obviously is a lot smaller. So I said, look, we're well known to the police now because we haven't been arrested. Us getting back out and trying to start dealing again in Britain is just not really going to happen, because the police are going to get onto us pretty quick.
Could you touch on like the impregnating part for people who wouldn't have a clue? How would you put that back into powder form or in a form where people can use it?
So I'll skip forward a little bit. So got out, did the painting and decorating for a while, got bored of that. Obviously had a bad day on one day. People were ringing me on and off saying, look, do you want to get involved? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And I kept saying, no. And then, had a bad day and just went, fuck it. Yeah, I will today. Yeah. I've had enough of painting and decorating, and let's put something together. So through my contact in Oxford, who was like always my main contact for coke, I rang him up and I said, look, can you find us a source for cocaine from South America? Can you get us in contact with a Colombian or Peruvian or someone up in London and try and set something up? So, cutting a bit of a long story short, he managed to get a hold of a Colombian and went out to meet this guy. And the initial premise was that I was going to start buying coke from them, which I did for someone in Newport, actually.
Bad influence. Shout out.
No, don't.
You know the only guest we've had on who has actually got close ties to this man. I'll have you know.
Yeah. So
You know you are.
Yeah, you know you are. So he sort of bankrolled it. So I started going up to London, meeting this Colombian, buying like a key or two of Coke, bringing it back down to Newport. And on, I think, the third deal, I actually said to the Colombian, I said, look, the real reason I'm here is because I want to start bringing Coke into Britain. I can bring to the table a lot of logistical stuff. I can bring a huge client base to the table. I've got customers all over Britain. I can get passengers, all sorts of stuff, companies, stuff that you need basically. And he turned around to me, and him and the Chilean that he was working with turned around to me and said, well, look, we're actually bringing cocaine into the country already, impregnated in rubber in the ground sheets of tents. And I was like, wow, well, this just seems like this meeting is meant to be, because, you know, that was the idea that I had in mind anyway, or something along those lines, some sort of impregnation method.
Crazy.
So when these guys came out and said, look, this is how we're doing it, I was like, wow, that's just, you know, this was meant to be. So we formed a partnership and, just started bringing these tents in from Colombia, basically, through Ecuador and Venezuela. So going back to the question you asked, the process, as far as I'm aware, putting it in, they put the cocaine into solvent and then mix it in with liquid latex, which is like a form of rubber. They then set this in very thin sheets, and then, you know, put it into whatever, like a tent, or you can put it into clothing, whatever you can, you know, fit it into, basically.
Could you wear it then? You could wear on.
We did some shipments in leather jackets, in the padding. Stuff like that.
A jacket was worth a fortune.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
So, yeah, get it back to Britain, and then we have to extract it using alcohols and acids.
Fucking
like
crazy.
So,
But then you would put it back into a powder then.
yeah, you end up with a cocaine powder.
Yeah.
You know, like obviously you said you made this deal and everything's sort of like working together, but obviously you'd not long come out of prison, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Weren't you paranoid at all of being monitored by the police? Like, wasn't that weighing on your head at all?
I mean, having come out of prison quite recently at the time, I mean, I think I was still on parole.
He probably thought doing the painting was like a bit of a decoy.
A cover, like, I'm just painting now, like, you know.
I mean,
Paint
yeah,
houses.
Obviously I was aware that the police were probably going to be monitoring me. I mean, it's a given, isn't it? You know, obviously they're going to be.
Yeah.
Did you have an inkling they were like looking at you, or?
I mean, not initially. When we started off on, you know, doing this thing, I mean, weren't they? I don't know. They certainly did do in the end.
So you just was like, oh, I'm not too sure. Like there was no indications that they was like.
What, initially?
Yeah. No. Well, obviously, eventually they did.
I
catch
mean,
you.
the police involvement in the Ecuadorian thing came after they raided one of the labs in Crystal Palace, and they arrested the Colombian and the Chilean in the lab, and a few other guys who shouldn't have been there. I was in Colombia at the time, in Cali, and so they've all been arrested with about 3 or 4 keys of coke in the lab, and the chemicals, precursor chemicals, the press for repressing, and during the Colombian's time in prison on remand, the police have flipped him. He's become an informant. They've obviously put pressure on him and said, "Look, we're gonna deport your family, your children, all the whole shebang."
Yeah.
And he rolled over. He got released after 6 months, and people were saying, "Look, we think he's an informant." And it was after that we became aware that we were definitely under surveillance.
Why? Do you know when you were arrested in Ecuador?
Yeah.
Knowing that, like they've got him and he's potentially become an informant. Why did you take that trip then to go?
That last trip, I mean, we carried on for quite a while after he came out of prison. I branched out with some other Colombians as well, so that there were kind of 2 things running parallel.
It's like you get in too deep, innit?
Yeah.
It's like there's just no going.
Well, this is the
Is
thing.
it fear from the big people you're supplying, or
another lab got raided in Edinburgh, and I was quite close to getting arrested when that one got hit. And at that point, I knew. I mean, I was actually having conversations with the police, and they were saying, "Look, you need to come in for questioning." And I was like, "No, I'm a bit busy."
Yeah, they were on you, mate.
Yeah, so the game's up at that point, and that's the point at which I got smuggled out of the country by the Turkish mafia in the boot of a car. Got smuggled into France, disappeared, dropped, emptied all the bank accounts, dropped all the electronic communications, disappeared, and should have stopped. Should have just disappeared. Decided to do the one last trip to Ecuador that we're talking about now, and
couldn't get enough.
the thing is,
where's a fucking country?
The thing is, I kind of knew the police were coming for me. They were, it was only a question of time before they came either to France or wherever the fuck I was in the world and arrested me.
When you rather be arrested in fucking France?
To be honest, I kind of thought, having got arrested in Ecuador, knowing how corrupt it was there, and having some sort of connections over in Colombia and whatnot, which is only up the road, sort of. I kind of hoped, or the idea that I had in my mind at the time was that I'd be able to bribe my way out or escape from prison in Ecuador quite easily. Of course, it nearly happened, but do
you think you was a bit deluded at this time of your age, like a bit of a dreamer, like these? I can
escape, but like
I've seen like the thing you was on about hiring a helicopter and shit. Like,
I mean that was an option. We could have done that, but it was too expensive.
Fucking crazy.
The prison in Ecuador, I mean, you could do pretty much anything there. But the reason that I carried on is, like I said, because I knew the police were coming for me. So in the back of my head, I thought I might as well just smash it and carry on until I get arrested, because they are going to come for me.
It's starting in your balls deep.
I mean, the plan had been go to Ecuador, get that last 10 sent back to England. I was going to come back to France, get a change of clothes, literally, and go to Thailand, wait for the money to come over, spend 6 months in Thailand. In fact, with my friend from Cardiff, Sean, who I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Shout out Sean.
Sean Knight.
Nighty boy.
Yeah. Obviously, I didn't make it back to France. I got arrested in Quito.
Are you glad though now? Like now it's all done. Where you are now, you're kind of, you're safe now.
Well, I'm alive.
Yeah, you're alive.
I'm glad.
Imagine if you did like fucking go to Thailand or whatever. It could have took you another totally different way.
I'm pretty sure I probably would have been dead by now, because I was that heavily involved in everything, and I mean, I'd had some pretty near misses even before I ever got arrested in Ecuador. I nearly got blown up in Bristol by some people that wanted to kill me there. Nearly got shot in a drive-by shooting. I mean, I've just had I've used up my 9 lives, put it that way.
Is this, the trouble you had in Britain, like you said, is this just being involved in it, or is this you upsetting people yourself? Or
No, that was the trouble in Bristol came on the back of somebody robbing me. They'd stolen a kilo of coke, and obviously we went trying to collect it, or trying to get the money back. They knew that I was coming for them, so they tried to take me out before I got to them first.
Yeah.
So it was tit for tat, stuff like that.
What do you think of the city of Bristol? Like how? Like...
It's full on. Bristol's around, but it's a busy city. There's a lot going on there.
Mm. Yeah. Okay, then. That's very interesting. So should you get arrested in Ecuador?
Yeah.
Take us from there.
Yeah, so this one last job in Ecuador. So I've taken possession of the tent. It's in the closet of the hotel room in Quito. And my girlfriend's come over from England because I haven't seen her for ages because I'm on the run in France. So I've told her to come over, spend a couple of weeks with me in Ecuador, show her around the country, whilst I, do this deal, send the mule back with the tent. She's only there 4 hours, and we get arrested by the Ecuadorian drug squad, Interpol. So I've just been out to dinner with her, come back to the hotel room. As I put the key card in the door, all hell breaks loose. There's balaclava police officers running down the corridor with machine guns out, handguns drawn, screaming at us. And obviously they know the drugs were in the hotel room. Go straight to the tent. They've obviously been into the hotel room whilst we're out. They know it's there. So get arrested, get taken into the prison after a while. And I decided to sort of pretty much take over the wing in Quito, the wing for foreigners. I form a gang of foreigners called Europanda.
Europanda.
Like European gang.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is, in Quito, in the prison of Quito, there weren't really too many gangs, not like in the other prisons in Ecuador. There were gangs, but not big ones.
Was that a rough prison then, would you say?
In Quito, it was dangerous. There were guns in there, there were gunfights, but it wasn't as dangerous.
But you was on a wing with foreigners, not the locals at that time.
So for a sort of bit of protection for ourselves, I got like 20 of us foreigners together and we formed an alliance with some Colombians. And that kind of worked to our advantage, but also to my disadvantage, because I sort of started to sort of take control of that wing. There was an Arab there running things at the time, and he didn't like the fact I was doing this. And added to the fact I tried to escape from the prison, I ended up getting transferred out of there after 2 years and sent to the prison in Guayaquil, which at the time was the third most dangerous prison in South America, and probably still is, I would say, if not the most dangerous in South America now.
For the people who are watching this who are probably not up to date with what goes on over there, can you explain to the people like what's going on over there right now and what type of prison it is?
Yeah, so when I was transferred there, it was a huge prison, 26 wings, 8,000 prisoners in there, split roughly in half between two gangs who were at war with each other. That has now become, there's a few more gangs. There's probably like 4 or 5 different gangs in Ecuador now, including the Choneros, Legatos, Cubanos, and several others. And
are they areas? Are they families? Are they?
They're all sort of from different parts of Ecuador, different parts of the city and stuff like that. But the problem is now they're affiliated to the Mexican cartels. So half of them are affiliated to the Sinaloa cartel, and the other half are affiliated to the New Generation Jalisco cartel, who are also at war with each other. So in Ecuador, what's playing out on the streets and in the prisons now is like a mini war for control of the trafficking routes out of Ecuador, the shipping routes for the cocaine coming out of South America. And this has resulted in massacres in the prison that I was in. Of like, I think the worst massacre was about, on the news it said 120, but it was actually more like about 250.
Really?
Yeah, seriously.
Fucking hell.
In the space of like 24 hours, 24 to 48 hours.
You were there in that particular?
No, I wasn't there for that one, though, obviously.
When were you?
What's being reported now, isn't it?
Do you need a work uniform? Want to start a clothing brand? Or maybe you have a football kit that needs a logo printed? Well, if I was you, I'd get in touch with the Re-Inspire Printing Company down Treforest Industrial Estate for the finest printing and embroidery in Wales. I use them for my custom-made mankini, but you could use them for t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and many, many other things.
Have you moved on yet, mate? In the car sense? Replace that old model with a fresh new whip, but now your ex is threatening to scrape your keys through it? Or maybe you just want to protect that new paint job from grime and dirt damage? Well, if I was you, I'd get yourself over to Unit 4 Keypoint, Cardiff, CF24 5HF. Services include paint protection film, ceramic coatings, vehicle wrappings, and car detailing. Customer packages available for track bikes and cars. Now, I don't drive, so I'm certainly going to get my bike done. Tough Films Limited. Get in touch.
There's been 3 really bad massacres in the last year.
Yeah.
I think about 400 people have been killed.
Wow.
What included one of my friends who was beheaded. And I've sent the photograph of somebody holding my friend's head, basically. You know,
what, as a threat to you?
No, they didn't know. It was one of the ones that was up on social media.
Okay.
Because I've still got friends in the prison, obviously they send me all the footage of all these massacres. I mean,
so
horrific stuff.
Did you witness anything like that in the prison?
I mean, in my time in prison, I mean, loads of my friends got killed. I found my best friend hung in his cell. I saw people getting dismembered, stabbed to death, cut to pieces with machetes, shot, blown up, poisoned, drowned, hung, beaten to death. I mean, just every form of killing you, electrocuted. Every form of killing you can
electrocuted.
So like
burnt to death.
Is this like an everyday occurrence? Like in a British jail, the bell goes off every day.
There were no bells in the prison.
No, but what I'm saying is like the occurrence of like every day without fail, a bell goes off.
Yeah,
like,
Would
there be a killing like every day?
I mean, in that second prison that I was in, the murder rate was between 5 and 6 a week. So I mean, that's more or less one a day, isn't it? So I mean, some days it'd be like 2 or 3. I mean, as you can see in these massacres, in a day they've been killing like 150 people, 120 people in one day.
Are they killing anyone, or is it like are they targeting a certain
gangs.
type of people?
It's between gangs.
Right.
Yeah.
That's some heavy shit.
I'm guessing that's over like turf control or trafficking routes.
That's what he said.
Trafficking routes and control of the drug trade in the prison as well. Because I mean, the drug trade in the prisons there is huge. It's a massive business. I mean, you can imagine like 8,000 prisoners in there, all of them probably doing drugs, pretty much.
So you going into that jail, being transferred, was it ultimately for you trying to escape from the other prison? Yeah. So when you went into didn't know anyone, didn't have any connections from outside before, or
what, into the second prison?
Yeah, could you like speak to people and say, I know so and so?
Luckily for me, some of my friends in Quito phoned ahead because one of the main gang leaders, little twitcher, nerves kicking in. One of the main gang leaders who was from Guayaquil had been up in Quito for a while, called Coyote. He's dead now. But he'd been transferred back down to Guayaquil. Luckily, my friends phoned ahead whilst I was being transferred and spoke to him. So when I arrived, I was kind of received reasonably, in a good fashion, not extorted. So luckily for me, yeah.
And what is the routine? What's the routine in a prison like that? Do you
for a foreigner arriving there?
Just an everyday routine.
Oh, everyday routine.
Are you banged up at a certain time, or is it just like, is it a gate with a wing and you're just left to your own devices?
It's pretty much like that. I mean, certainly in the time that I was there, you were locked on the wing. Let's start from the morning. In the morning, they do a count at about 8 a.m. And then they open the wing at about 9 o'clock, so you could go to other wings. You have to be back on the wing for 5:30, but all of the cells were open 24/7.
You could go to other wings.
Yeah.
So you could
get on the roof of this prison when I was there.
So you could do a ride.
The gang had lookouts on the roof.
I've seen a photo of the two
on the corners of each corner. Of the
Look out for what?
For the other gang coming over to try and kill them. So they'd be armed, they'd have people up on the roof with guns looking out for the other gang.
It's literally a full-blown war.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's proper warfare.
So the guards...
the guards are all paid off.
So they don't bother... Do they come on the wings, or like...
They come on the wing. I mean, it was just...
It's a mess, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just so corrupt there. And the guards are in fear of their life at the end of the day. If they go against the gang, they get killed. You have to imagine half of these gang members have grown up in the same areas as the guards. So they all know each other. I mean, it's a bit like in prison in Britain. Quite often you might know some of the guards.
Bump into officers you know, yeah?
Yeah, that you know from your hometown or whatever. There is even more so. So you can imagine the corruption levels are just through the roof. You can bring anything you want into the prison. I've heard recently that they've now, because of the amount of corruption and how bad it's got, they've now got the military running the prison. They've got the military inside the prison, but even they are corrupt. You're always going to know someone that knows someone.
Yeah. It's like they need something from the outside going in. And
yeah.
You hear people would say, I've seen some of the comments on some of the videos I was watching, just the news reported ones, and people would I just fucking blow it up. But you was in that prison, so like, what would you say to people who just blow up the fucking thing? They're criminals anyway. Like, what do you say to people like that?
How do you mean?
Like, some people would just say, do you know what? They deserve to fucking die. They're criminals. Blow the fucking thing up.
Oh, right. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it depends on how humane you are, doesn't it? I mean, I think everybody's done something wrong. Maybe not everybody, but nearly everybody's done something wrong in their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I think everybody deserves a second chance, but at the end of the day, I mean, there are some pretty bad people out there. So...
The thing which is frightening for me is that, like, you were just selling, trafficking cocaine, and now you're in with this guy who's fucking killed. It's like you're all mixed together.
Yeah.
Like, in Britain it's different. You have different different wings for like vulnerable people, nonces. They're not at risk. Here, it just seems like you're just chucked in with.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everyone was just thrown in there together. You just have to get on with yourself. I mean, there's no going to the guards. There's no going to anyone for protection. There is no protection in there, you know. So you really, the only way to survive was you had to sort of become affiliated to one of the gangs, or make yourself appear useful to them, or, you know, either useful at the time or possibly of some potential use in the future, which is what I did. You know, I bigged up the fact that, you know, I said, oh, you know, I've got strong trafficking connections in Europe. Maybe in the future we could do something, blah, blah, blah. You know, all of that.
It was always on a future promise of...
Some of it. I mean, you know, I did get involved with one of the gangs in there. I mean, you know, selling coke on the wing, or two of the wings, they put me in charge for a while. You know.
You were selling coke inside. So there's people flat out, like, having parties, basically.
Oh, there were some crazy parties in there. I mean, at the time I was there, your visits would come into the wing, into your cells. Initially, when I started at Finquito, your girlfriend, wife, or any female could stay overnight with you in your cell every other weekend. So they come in Saturday morning and leave Sunday evening. Spend
I can imagine there's some stories here of like some heavy old guy like, I like your missus, mate. Can bring her here.
Well, they just get shot if they were like that.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you could buy your own cell. So if you had your own cell, you just kick the other people out in your cell. You know, have your girlfriend in, and they would stay the night. And
currency is money, I'm assuming. Like how would?
Yeah, there's cash in the prison. I think that did stop for a little while, but I think it's all just reverted back to normal now. I mean, if you can get machine guns and explosives into a prison, then obviously you can get cash in.
Yeah. You sent us some. Give us some photos. The photos of the guns, and I will put up on the thing anyway.
Military grade stuff.
Yeah, machine guns, sticks of dynamite.
If you've got any stories, you can put out like some of the close near-death experiences of yourself, maybe.
I'll just pitch my book. I mean, in the book that I've written, El Infierno, which talks about my prison experiences, in there I go into one of the particularly bad experiences that I had, which was a 2.5 hour long gunfight on the wing. A new gang had come into the prison and they were on my wing. In fact, it was the gang that had put me in charge of selling cocaine on the wing. They were called the Choneros, who are now probably Ecuador's biggest, strongest gang, or one of them anyway. And the boss of that gang was on the wing with me, called Hot Eli. He's now dead. He got shot. But the other gang at the time, the Cubanos, had launched an attack to try and kill him. And on the particular evening when this happened, we were locked on the wing, and it was about 9:30 at night. And I was taking a plate of food down to one of the gang members from the Choneros. And as I've given him the plate of food, some other members of the Cubanos who were near the gate to the wing have come up behind me, used me as sort of cover, and shot the guy over my shoulder and shot him in the face as I'm giving him the food. As I'm turning away, they've shot over my shoulder and killed him in front of me, blown the back of his head out. Spaghetti bolognese, which is what I was cooking, has gone everywhere.
Someone you were serving grub has now been killed?
Yeah, right in front of me, and that's what started the 2.5 hour long gunfight.
Why was he targeted?
Because he was like the second in command of the Choneros.
Okay. Were you ever a target?
I became a target after that because of being involved with them and selling cocaine for them and being quite friendly with them and very good friends with the boss of the gang's brother, who's called Carlos. I'm still friends with him now. Because of that, after the gunfight had happened, which lasted 2.5 hours and ended up with like two people dead and 12 injured, the police then came in and tortured everybody for another 2.5 hours to find out what had happened. They then took all the Choneros off the wing to another wing. I was asked if I wanted to go with them, and because I had a cell there, I said, no, I'll stay. I'm a foreigner, I'll be all right. I should have left. Because the next people that took control of the wing, the Cubanos, knew that I'd been involved with this lot and that I'd been like the boss of the cocaine for the two wings. They didn't like the fact that I was still there. So I became a target, basically. And I mentioned earlier that I got called into the cell of the new boss on like, I don't know, about a week after the shootout had happened. And he started, he'd been drinking and doing coke, and he was a horrible little fucker. And he started saying, "Oh, we're going to kill you." Blah, blah. And me being me, I thought, "Oh, fuck it, I'll call his bluff."
Sorry, was this in English or like?
No, it's Spanish.
So you speak fluent?
Yeah, yo hablo español.
Fucking hell, sorry. Go on.
So he started saying, "Oh, we're going to kill you unless you do this and do that." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, just kill me then if you trying to call his bluff," which was a mistake because, I've done it in front of him and his homies, basically. So he then goes, there was a guy stood behind me, obviously blocking the doorway, whose name was Armando, who I was actually quite friendly with, but also he was like their sort of big guy. He would just choke people out and fucking kill you. So they've said, "Armando, go and get a couple more guys. We're going to kill this guy and cut him up." And I was like, obviously the panic set in, and I was like, whoa. And then I had to talk myself out of it.
How the fuck did you talk yourself
I can't remember
out of that?
now how I did it, but I did it. I just calmed the situation down as best I could, and luckily, because I was quite friendly with this guy Armando, I think he actually spoke up for me, and I managed to get out of there. But I remember that was scary.
What was life like after that then? After that situation?
After that, it was bad on that wing. The new boss of that wing, there was him and two others, and they just made everybody's life on that wing hell. To the extent that I ended up just giving up the cell that I'd bought for like $2,000, and I moved up to the wing that was above, which at the time had sort of started to become a wing for foreigners. So I moved up to that wing with a couple of other English guys who were up there. In fact, one of whom ended up getting hung in his cell, Steve.
He was British.
He was British. I spent 5 years in prison with him, spending a couple of hours a day in his cell.
What happened to him?
Like 2 or 3 cells apart. And he ended up he'd been in there 9 years at the point he got killed. He was due to get released. Oh. And he had stupidly tried to do some business trafficking with the gang. And I said, "Steve, don't do it, because whatever happens, whatever outcome, you're going to end up paying. If the drugs get there, if they don't get there, whatever, you're going to end up in debt and end up paying." And he was so desperate to get out of there that he decided to go ahead. And he ended up in about 150 grand's worth of debt to this gang. And they said, basically, if you don't pay it by this Monday, we will kill you. I saw him at 8:30 at the count. Like I said, by 9:30, somebody came to my cell and they said, "Look, we think something's wrong with Steve," because they'd obviously seen the gang go in there. So they said, "We think something's wrong with Steve." So I came out. We had to take out an air conditioning unit from above his door. And as we took it out, he was hanging. They'd hung him. And his parole papers came a week after, and he would have got released. I had to tell his daughters.
Where's he from, Steve? What part?
From London area, but he'd lived in Spain for years. He'd been on the run in Spain.
Was he involved in trafficking drugs?
Yeah, he'd actually been sentenced. He'd done a shipment into Avonmouth in Bristol.
Yeah, it's a big
of about 250. I think it was either 200 or 300 keys of coke in the arms of JCB diggers. It was quite.
So you two probably clicked then. You were a bit paddy because you had the same sort of.
I actually knew one of the engineers, one of the mechanics that he'd used. I'd been in prison with one of the mechanics from Tewkesbury during my time in Gloucester. I didn't know him. I recognised his face immediately when I saw him in the news. And yeah, I mean, it's a small world at that sort of level. It's a very small world. You bump into people in the weirdest of places that know people on the other side of the planet.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is the fact that you, like you say, is a small world.
Yeah.
I just want to know though. Do you know when you were in the prison? What are you doing for defense? Did you buy a weapon yourself?
When I was in Quito, I had a handgun. Always had a knife. But yeah, we had a handgun in Quito, pistol.
Question I want to ask that no one probably have: have you ever killed anyone?
Yeah. I have.
Fucking serious?
Yeah.
What, in the prison?
In yeah.
I didn't expect that to come up.
You know.
It's
You live
it's
by
gonna
the gun,
happen,
you
know what
die
I
by
mean?
the like that's
you know,
it.
you get put in situations where there's no way out, and it's either you or them.
Fucking
Can
hell.
you explain the situation there?
No, not really. I don't want to go into it.
No, that's fair enough.
That is fair enough, obviously. Fucking hell, mate.
That's the first time I've actually answered that. Probably.
Does that weigh on your head?
I mean, to be honest, indirectly, I know for a fact that drugs that I've supplied have ended up killing people as well.
how do you feel about it?
It happened, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Because obviously, drugs is devastating. Really, do you
Yeah.
ever think back like, fuck, like maybe I shouldn't have went down that route? Like,
Yeah, often. And I wish I hadn't have done, really. I wish to some extent, well, to a big extent, that I'd had more support when I was younger. Someone like sort of directed me away from drugs. Yeah, definitely.
Well, again, I was going to say, like, if you could ever have done this again, lived this life, or maybe you hadn't have been caught, or, you know, if you could wipe your alias, for example, would you go back and sell drugs again?
What? When?
Now, like?
No, not now. No, never. I've lost a lot. When I was in Ecuador, my mum died, my cousin, my auntie, 2 girlfriends, loads of my friends.
Yeah, you said.
Just a catalogue of death around me.
What was your lowest point in that prison? And it probably sounds stupid.
I mean, I had a couple. I mean, halfway through, having done 6 years, that's around the time my mum died. I contracted TB. Well, I didn't contract TB. I was injected with TB.
Injected?
They kept what was supposedly the Ministry of Health came in to do a vaccination course against TB, and it wasn't. They were experimenting on the prisoners. I was injected. I didn't want the injection, and I had a huge argument the day that they came in and said, I don't want it. I'm from Europe. I've had all this when I was a kid. Don't need it. And they said, look, you either have the injection or we're going to take you off the wing. We'll take your cell off you. You know, when I was on this wing for foreigners, the second one.
Yeah, nice.
With my mate Steve, so didn't want to lose it all. So I said, yeah, give the injection, and ended up chronically sick with a multi-drug resistant bovine strain of TB. After they came in and did this, there was an epidemic of TB in the prison, all different strains of TB, whereas before there'd been hardly any. And they wouldn't even give you an aspirin or paracetamol for free there. You had to pay to see the doctor. You had to pay a guard to take you to the doctor. You had to pay to get your medication. Nothing for free. So bear that in mind. And suddenly there's all these boxes of retroviral cutting-edge drugs coming into the prison for TB that they're giving out for free, that cost £25,000 per prisoner.
Fucking hell.
And you have to have a year's treatment. And they're giving it out for free. And
monetizing everything.
Yeah.
It's a fucking mess over there, isn't it?
And the maker's mark on the manufacturer's mark on the medication changed 4 times in the 3 years that I was on it. So I know for a fact they were definitely experimenting on what worked, what didn't. And loads of people died from TB. So yeah, going back to it, this is around the 6-year point. So my mum dies, I contract TB. I then get told that I'm not going to get parole, that I'm going to have to do another 5.5 years in prison on top of the 6 I've just done. So out of the 12 that I got sentenced to, I would have had to have done 11 and change in Ecuador. So, yeah, and then found my friend Steve hung. Loads of other shit happened. So that was a pretty low point.
What was the day like when you were told you're leaving Ecuador and you're coming to Britain to Spain?
When I finally got repatriated, yeah, it was... they just came and got me. I didn't actually know that I was going. So it was just a normal day, because the process took about 2 years to go through all the paperwork and back and forth between Britain and Ecuador. And they just came and got me one day and said, look, you're needed up in the reception of the prison. So I went without anything. And they said, oh, you're actually going back to Britain today. And it just didn't seem real. Huge amount of security taking me to the airport. Got transported in a car with 4 Interpol officers all armed in the car with me. a Jeep front and back with military in it.
No one British there to escort you there, or
Yeah, there were 3 British prison officers came over from Wandsworth to take me back. The British Embassy came to the airport to see me off, and like a few other people that I knew there as well. Yeah, it was.
did they seem to give any care? Like, obviously, they know this is a real bad prison. They know what happens in these places. When the British Embassy have come and they ask you whatever questions, do they give you any human side of it? Like, how are you doing, mate? Like,
the British Embassy. They do help to some extent. I mean, I think they've cut back now, but I think they come in like once every 6 months now. They might bring your post into you because there's no postal system coming into the prison. But yeah, I mean, they're kind of restricted in what they can do to some extent. They can't get involved in the legal side of it.
how long was you in Wandsworth then for the rest of your sentence until you were
Just 10 months at the end.
So it was the final.
Yeah,
final
I was kind of glad that I did that last 10 months in Wandsworth because it kind of because I had massive culture shock coming back to Britain. I didn't think I would.
Integrated you back in, didn't it?
I thought, coming back to Britain to my own culture, I'm not going to have culture shock, but of course, having spent nearly a decade in Ecuador in a prison there, I had massive culture shock coming back to England. Yeah, and it was just before Christmas, so I remember all the advertising really blew my mind. All the waste in the prison, all the food getting thrown away, because in Ecuador nothing gets wasted. Because it's a poor country, everything gets reused, or it's just nothing gets thrown away or wasted, basically.
Yeah.
So it was quite overpowering coming back to Britain.
What was the feeling being released? This you said you've been in prison before, you only done not a short time, for being there for that long. What was it like being released from the gate?
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, it was good.
Did you meet anyone out at the gate, or?
No, I didn't actually. I got released out of Wandsworth, and I met a Scottish girl who was a professor of criminology, who I'd met in Ecuador. She'd been doing a study in the prison over there. I met up with her on the first day, and she sort of guided me across London back to Paddington, and just saw me off on the train.
What was the first thing you ate?
I can't remember now, actually. I don't know.
There were nothing like, I can't wait to get out, I want to have a McDonald's. It was none of that.
No, not really.
Wow.
But it was, The crazy thing was that when I left to go to Ecuador for that one last trip, my dad saw me off on the train in France. Obviously, I was in France. So he took me to the train station there, saw me off on the train up to Paris. And he then met me at the train station in Stroud
when I got
the train back from London at the end of it. So it was like I'd done one big train journey.
Yeah. He jogged you on and he brought you home.
Yeah, it was.
That's crazy.
It was quite a mad story.
Do you suffer from any sort of mental health or PTSD or anything like that?
I mean, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, which is, you can look it up, but yeah, I mean. I suppose I do still suffer from it. I mean, coming here today, as I was walking to get the train, somebody ran up behind me, and immediately I was like, this is on my way to the train in Stroud. I was like panicking, thinking someone was coming to attack me. Not only only a brief sort of panic up.
What's it like? Do you ever get flashbacks? Do you ever have trouble sleeping? Images?
I don't really sleep for any more than 3 or 4 hours in one go in a night. I might wake up after 3 or 4 hours and then go back to sleep for a bit. But I have frequent dreams about being back in the prison.
Do you ever dream like you're there? Type of
yeah, quite often. Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
I think with all these mental sort of health whatevers, I mean, I've always been a big champion of making the best out of a bad situation and trying to turn every negative into a positive, really. And you just got to get on with it, haven't you, at the end of the day? There's no point in hiding away and locking yourself
100%.
behind doors.
Yeah, because you just end up being worse. So
I think a lot of the counselling that they give for PTSD only makes it worse, to be honest. I did
really
go and start doing some counselling when I first got out. And I would go in there fine and come out of there in bits and not want to leave my room for about 3 or 4 days. You know,
Wow.
I'd be actually, happy going in and come out in tears because, they're making you relive situations that you've been in that I didn't want to relive.
Do you find talking like this on a podcast and stuff?
Writing the book definitely helped.
Did it?
Because obviously I had to relive it in detail. So getting it down on paper definitely helped sort of get it out of my system, get it down and sort of put to bed.
Yeah.
And also, talking about it does I think help to some extent.
You've got a Netflix series, hopefully.
Well,
coming.
I haven't, but I'd like to have one.
I'm
Oh,
surprised.
so you're not? I thought it was like really happening. Sorry.
No, not yet. No, I mean, I've got a production company that's interested in making
Okay.
it. Yeah,
It could be a movie, your life, honestly.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
could.
I'm writing the prequel at the moment, so I need to get that finished.
Yeah.
So to put together with that and the first book, I think there will then be enough for a script.
Mate, it's been crazy experience for you. I got a couple of things I'd want to talk about, like just about everything in general. Like, and the first question I want to ask you is, if you had the power to tackle the war on drugs yourself, if you had a magic wand, what would you do?
I would definitely decriminalise it with a long-term view to legalising it. But decriminalisation, first of all, I think the only way to really sort the problem out is to take the monetary gain or the monetary profit out of the hands of criminals in some way. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, that's the only reason we do it, or criminals do it, is for financial gain. So if that element is removed from the equation, then there's no reason for them to do it. But yeah, definitely decriminalisation, certainly for drug users. Because at the end of the day, those are the people. There's something like a quarter of the world's prison population that are in there for drug offences, mainly drug users, not so much traffickers. And it's a health. It's a question of health, really, isn't it? At the end of the day, or an issue of health and education.
Yeah.
So I think people need to be better educated and. Yeah, certainly decriminalisation with a view to manufacturing it under licence and heavily taxed to offset the ill effects and the burden on the health system.
It kind of leads me on to my other question is in Britain, there was something Boris, the stuff they put in the other week with the government about trying to take people's passports and people who were just recreational users.
That's crazy.
It's like... Do you think as well that people who with drug addictions, especially minor offences, do you think they should be going to prison or?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, they should be getting treatment. Well, I mean, it depends on the offence, but
Well, that's what I'm saying. If someone's gone and murdered someone, I kind of understand. But for people like myself, who was literally all I ever did was anything just to fund my habit. And
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's the sort of those are the sort of people that should be getting treatment, so that they don't need to go robbing or whatever to fund their habits, because their habits will be supported, or with a view to obviously getting them off the drugs in the long term.
Yeah. What's next for Posh?
What's next? Well, I need to get this next book written and finished. I'm about halfway through it, but it's taken me a hell of a long time.
Yeah. You doing that yourself?
Yeah. I wrote the first one myself as well.
And what's that book mainly about? Like the prison?
What, the prequel?
Yeah, the prequel. So it's leading up to prison, is it?
The one I'm writing
The one
now.
you're writing now?
Yeah, that'll be about all the trafficking and...
The prequel?
Yeah, about all the trafficking and the crazy stuff that we did.
I watched on one of your interviews as well that you're trying to now import other things. If you want to let the people know what you're trying.
Yeah. I've got my own company. I'm just waiting for some samples to come through from Ecuador of cacao. So I'm looking to start my own line of chocolate products, my own range of chocolate products. Ecuadorian cacao is the best in the world, basically. So yeah,
Anyone out there want
gone from cocaine to cacao.
What? Sorry, one more. What do you think of the country of Ecuador and South America? Like, what do they need to do?
Ecuador is a fantastic country. It's got it's a small country. It's got everything there for tourism. It's an amazing country. You've got the Galapagos Islands, you've got the volcanoes, the jungle, and all in a small space. It's got huge potential. I mean, they've got oil, they've got gold, loads of. I mean, you can grow anything there. Just throw it on the ground and it grows. I mean, the climate there is fantastic. The problem is it's all mismanaged, and the corruption is just so endemic that it's fucked. Basically, the rich are just getting richer there, and the poor are getting poorer, and they'd just be left to kill each other, basically.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to say down the camera to the people watching? Anything positive? Maybe people who are dealing with PTSD. Maybe people who are thinking about selling drugs. Anything you'd like to say down
Certainly,
the
if
camera?
you're thinking about selling drugs, then just be aware that it's only going to end in trouble. You're probably going to end up in prison at some point, if not dead. And it might seem a good idea at the time. You might be making lots of money. But, unless you're very, very lucky, it will come unstuck. For sure.
Yeah. Pete, honestly, I really appreciate you coming down.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and your story is just amazing. Like, we've just tried to jumble in as much as we could, and then I can imagine.
There's a lot more.
There's a lot more, definitely. And in the future, who knows, you might come down again.
Sure.
I think you said you can have a break on podcasting for a bit now.
Well, I'm thinking about it, I don't know. But we'll
it's
see.
good to talk, though, Pete.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Even if you're saying the same story over and over again, if it helps you in any type of way.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for coming down. Like, man,
Awesome.
definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. It was a bit of a rough one. He's been through a hell of a journey. And guys, your book is out on Amazon, and it weren't on Amazon, it was sold out for us, but Amazon,
It should be on
Waterstones, and what's the name of the book?
El Infierno.
El Inferno.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah,
That's French.
the Inferno, El Infierno.
El Inferno. Guys, if any of you want to go into, importing some chocolate with an extra Trafficker, shout him up. You're not really on social media, are you?
I'm not. I find it all a bit overwhelming, really, social media. But I don't
Get
know.
at me, DM me, and I'll get it.
Yeah, I need to.
I'll be the plug.
I need to employ somebody else to do all my social media for me.
Yeah.
No worries. Guys, thank you very much. Make sure you hit that like button, comment in the comment box, share, do all that type of stuff. I'll see you all soon. Stay central.
The Central Club.